everybody, I'm Natalie with Missouri Star Quilt Company, and today we are doing our What If series. Now, What If is a fun thing we came up this year since Mom's out of town for a little while. We decided to look back on some of her quilts and say, what if we made that one slightly different? What if we used a different background color? What if we used solids instead of a print? What if we turned the blocks and did a different layout or changed the way the borders look? There's lots of different ideas, endless opportunities for creativity. So this one we're doing today is Tranquil Triangles, and it originally debuted around 2017, I think. And this was our original quilt. We used K-facet fabrics. We put the fabric so that the space came together and created a little square in a square, and they're all the same, 4 blocks. And I think it's darling. I think it's beautiful. Lots of people loved it. It's still great. But what if we did something different? So the first thing that I did, probably within that year or the following year, was change the background fabric to a dark color. And then I used a print that was a little bit different than Cafe. So let's see that quilt just real quick. I'm gonna pull it down. All right, so this is our second version that we came up with, and it went into Block Magazine. And I chose a dark background with this dark sort of teal color, and then the print we used was all black and white and gray, so it looks very geometric and a lot different, I think, than the Cafe quilt. So for me, this was really fun to see it. I love doing that for block, just putting the quilts in different colors and different fabrics. Sometimes the border sizes will vary, but I try to stick pretty close to the pattern so that you're making what you're looking at. But yeah, this was fun. This was an interesting one. All right, but I'm the most excited about what I've got underneath this quilt because it's a stunner, and I think you guys are gonna love it and love how easy it is to put together. This is it. This is the what if that we're gonna be working on today, and I can't wait to get started. Okay, so to make my quilt, we are gonna need some yardage, and I've chosen 4 colors. So we have this peach. It's actually called Colorworks Solids by Northcott, and this one is called Sunrise. You're gonna need 3/4 of a yard of that, 1 yard of vermilion, 1 1/3 yards of Serenity, 2 5/8 of Liberty Blue, and this one, your yardage is a little bit higher because we've included the amount that you need for your outer border. Your background yardage, you'll need 4 yards, and that also includes your 3-inch inner border. And for our backing, you will need 8 yards if you're just using regular 45-inch wide fabric, or if you're using a 108, you'll need 2 2/3 yards, and we've used Fusions in Cardinal by Robert Kaufman. So let's get started. Okay, so one of my favorite things about this pattern is that we've created this downloadable coloring pages that are free on our site, and you can choose a color palette. You can color it in with pencil, you can cut them out, and then turn them any which way that you like. So we have 3 options. We have this large one. This is a cute little mini design wall that you can color in however you like, and then you could make a bunch of small blocks if you want to build a whole quilt in mini. Or you can print this page as many as you want because it's your printer and you can do what you want with a free download. So that is, I think it's really fun. I've chosen to color a couple in different colors than we're using for our quilt, just so you can see kind of how they look. So we have this really lovely green, and if we put all the greens together, it looks really cool, very pretty. Or we can do like we did with our other quilt and turn one out, and that's going to create a whole different look. You know, I think that's very fun. It's beautiful. It's one of these things that's really creative without a lot of pressure. You can make hundreds of quilts just by coloring. Super fun. Okay, let me show you. I've got these orangey reddish ones. They're pretty. Oh, that one has its. So I did a couple different ones. This is one design, and then this is another one, and I thought it might look kind of cool if I swapped in some other, so if we colored in and had 2 colors instead of just a background there, then you get that little oh gosh, it's just a cute little 4 half square triangle diamond in the middle. I can't get them to lay straight and my fingers aren't picking them up very well. Okay, so we could do it like that, or we could do all of the light colors in. And you've got more of like a sunset. It's really glowy and pretty. So anyways, I think I did some of these backwards too. Oh, that one was just backwards. Okay, so maybe I get that from my mom, the little angly challenge thing. I get that sometimes, but I think we all do. So another idea that I had that I think is kind of fun is you don't have to stick to one background color. You can color in your triangles and then use all the colors in the rainbow if you want to. So, you know, you can make the same types of designs and patterns, but they look quite different based on whether you're using lights and darks or warm and cool prints. And I think it can be very fun just to play around and see what you like and what looks good. You could have some of them have background colors if you wanted, like see how where these purples are, say that was all like a black or a navy blue, that would pop out and create like a square in your print. You could actually make this entire line the same color, and then the rest of them could be all different. And really what you've done is you've just created different patterns and different sizes with the illusion of fabrics that are all the same, right? So it's really, really fun to try all these things, and I hope that you do it. Just download some free printable pages, print them out, have fun, and then, you know, send us some pictures of what you're working on, because it's exciting. I love it. Okay, so today I am going to show you 3 different layouts for the quilt, and we're going to start with our fabrics. We're going to cut our yardage into 10-inch squares. So I've cut all of these, I just cut them ahead of time because we all know how that goes. You pull out the fabric, straighten it, cut a 10-inch strip, and then subcut 10-inch squares. And we're going to use the make 8 method and square them to 4.5 inches. So we'll walk through that, but I've made most of my triangles ahead. I'm just going to do one to demo it because the entire quilt is made using these 4.5-inch half square triangles. Okay, so I just wanted to point out one more thing real quick about this pattern. On page 3, you'll notice it talks about how many numbers you need and how many numbers you're going to make. And I just wanted to help a little bit because it caught my attention and seemed kind of like difficult for me to understand right off the bat. But because we're making our half square triangles in multiples of 8, it tells you how many you're going to get, and then it tells you how many you're going to need for the project. So there's two or three colors where you're going to make 4 half square triangles more than you need. That's all it is. It's not a big deal. You'll just set those aside for another project or maybe make a cute little throw pillow out of them. You can do whatever you want, but I thought I would just, you know, speak to that a little bit because it can be tricky when reading patterns to understand what the writer is intending you to mean, to learn. So that being said, let's make our half square triangle. So I'm going to take my colored fabric and my white fabric. I'm going to draw the line diagonally both directions, and I've already done that. And then I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch away on both sides of both lines. And it is important to stick with that 1/4 inch because we're trying to get 4.5-inch half square triangles, and if your seam allowances are too wide, you may not have enough room to square them up. So just be aware of that. Not a huge deal. I've never really had too much trouble with it, and I'm pretty relaxed when I sew. But I just thought I would, you know, call it out because I have in my lifetime had some small half square triangles come out when I use this method. So I'm going to set these over here because they're just so pretty. And then I'm going to sit down and sew. So I will just flip that around and stitch down the other side. And then at this point, I clip my threads and do the other diagonal line. So you can see that sewn X pretty well on the red side. So now what I'm going to do is cut horizontally and vertically first, because that way I get my cuts that aren't marked out of the way before anything can move. And we're just cutting this in half with our 5-inch ruler. And then we're going to cut on the lines, both directions. And just like that, we've got our 8 half square triangles. Okay, so now let's start squaring these half square triangles now that we've got all 8 made. And I'm going to show you 3 different ways to do it. We'll do one with the block lock, one with the Clearly Perfect, and one with our 5x15 ruler. So let's start with Clearly Perfect, because that happens before you press anything. So what you're going to do is take your trimmer A, because it has all of your finished 1/2-inch sizes from 1.5 to 6.5. You're going to choose the size that you want finished. And at this point, I want to also mention that, like I said earlier about our half square triangles coming out a little small, it's okay if they do. You can, in this quilt, you can change all of your half square triangles to 4 inches or 3.5 inches or 4.25 inches. It's really whatever they come out to. As long as they're all the same size, you are going to have a fabulous looking quilt. So no worries about that. Don't stress too hard. This is all just suggestions, ideas, advice, and opinion. Okay, so we're going to line up this dashed line with our stitches on the fabric. So I'm going to put my 4.5 line right across there. And the cool thing about squaring up is because you're lining up with a seam, you're going to make these squares look so beautiful and so perfect. And everybody will say, wow, how are you such a great sewer? And you're going to say, I square my blocks. All right, so we're going to cut down this other side, and then this ruler has these little notches built in. Be a little careful when doing it because you can damage your blade if you try to stick it in and it doesn't go in the right way. But I want to show you too. So I do think it's important to cut off these little ends because they will get in the way, in the bulk of your seam if you don't. It's not that big of a deal. It's total personal preference, but after not doing it for long enough and recognizing the problem that it actually would create for me, I've started doing it. So if you don't want to use the ruler though, I've found that if I just cut, you know, away from the outer side, it's the same thing, and it really doesn't matter as long as you stick with the corner of your seam. I would do this after. So if I'm gonna, let's say I'm gonna go ahead and cut this 4.5 with my Clearly Perfect. So I've cut off this side, but I don't want to use the notch on the ruler. All I'm going to do is slide that away and then just cut at an angle right against that seam. It takes out enough of the bulk, and it doesn't have to be at a certain measurement. It's just to give you more flexibility when you're sewing your half square triangles together. And it matters when you have all your points coming in when you're making, say, a pinwheel or a Lemoyne star. So that's that. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and press a couple of these because I've got a couple other ways to square for you. I tend to try and square all of my, or not square, but press all of my blocks with the dark side going under the fold, because that way you don't see that seam allowance if you're looking at a lighter background fabric. If you've got all dark fabrics, it really doesn't matter, or mediums. It's mainly when I've got a white background and I don't want the red to show through the fabric on the front of the quilt. Okay, first we're going to use our block lock. It is made for squaring. The block lock comes in a set of 3. You'll get a 2.5, 4.5, and 6.5. And of course, each one has the other measurements inside as well. So when you're wanting to do a bunch of 4.5-inch squares, this is super convenient because you're just using the outside edges. It has this really great groove that you're going to put up against the seam. And because it's pressed to the dark, it'll push against that and stay in place while you're squaring, which is awesome. It's like the easiest tool I've ever used. So you'll set that in place and you'll just trim. I like to do all 4 sides, but if you have a really good edge, you can skip doing 2 sides if you can line it up really nice and straight. And that all just depends on how you cut them. So that's it. It's super simple to use the block lock, very accurate and easy. And I love it. I love all of my tools for different reasons, unless you worry about the feelings of my other rulers. Okay. So now we're going to use this handy dandy tool. A lot of your rulers that are longer have a 45-degree angle line, and that's where this becomes super useful. All right, so I'm going to line up my square with my seam line again with this 45-degree angle, and we're looking for 4.5. So I'm going to line it up, and hopefully on the inside here, my fabric is over the 1/2 inch mark. So we have 4 across and 1/2, and 4 across here and 1/2. And I'm going to push it up a little bit. The key is just to make sure that this 45-degree angle stays on top of your seam line. Then you're going to trim your first 2 sides, and I'm just barely shaving off a little bit because this one got a little, I don't know, it got cut a little small. And then I'm going to flip that around and do the same thing. Now I'm worried about lining up these 1/2 inch marks exactly where I want them to be, making sure again that my line, my 45-degree angle line, is still in line with my seam allowance, or seam line, sorry. And then I'm just going to trim that square. And that's it. So you can make half square triangles square and perfect with all kinds of rulers. It's great. So they all end up being the same size. They're perfect. You can use them whichever ways you want. All right, hopefully that was a helpful little segment. So I have already made all of my half square triangles in all of their colors, and they look like this. So now we can start laying out our blocks. And the block for this quilt is super simple. You start with a peach down in one end, a light peach, and they go this way. I had that a little bit backwards. Then we're going to go with our medium peach, and all of our half square triangles, they line up pretty much the same way. So your color is going this way and your background is pointing down. So we'll do these 2. Then we go with our light blue, or this way. And then we come in with our dark blue. That goes like that, and like that. And our final blue goes just like this. So then we're going to stitch these together. I would chain piece them. I would do these two, and these 2. Then I would leave them together, stitched, and then I'd come up to the top and do this one, add this one to this one, you know, so on and so forth, and then sew my 2 lengthwise seams. All right, so once you've sewn this block together, then you're going to have a block that looks like this. And that is the block this entire quilt is made out of. They're all the same, and there's 36 of them. So once you get all those made, then we can start playing around with our layout. And that is really fun because there's several different ways to lay out this quilt. We've included 3 in the pattern. We've got one where the emphasis is on the light squares facing in, one where the dark squares are the more prominent color. And then the one that we chose to make our quilt out of is this beautiful sort of exploding X kind of a pattern. They're very, very cool, and I'm going to show you how to lay out all 3 of them right now. You're going to like this. Okay, so laying out a quilt is one of my favorite things to do because you can see so many different patterns emerge, and it's just really fun to look at those different quilts made up of the same block. So we're going to start with the diagram on 4C, and this one emphasizes the lighter color of it's kind of like a medallion, I guess. So we're going to do that, and I'm going to show you how this looks. So we start with our first block right here, and we're going to put all of the light peach triangles to the center to create a larger block. And I dropped one of them down here. There we go. So you can see how these come together. And then for this quilt, you're just going to continue making this block. So it goes together, there's 9 of them, the larger block. So you can make them all as blocks, or you can just lay your quilt out and sew together rows that go, you know, sew together your blocks and then sew your rows together. That is entirely up to you. But for the idea's sake, you can see how these just come together and it makes this really cool design. It's so beautiful. Okay. So my design wall is 72-ish inches wide, and I don't have enough to do all 3 blocks, but you can see that this is the pattern that you would be making to do the entire quilt. So you'll make 3 across by 3 down, and your quilt will be done. So let's go on and move on to the next diagram. It's similar to this one, but we're turning all these blocks so that our navy or navy goes to the middle. And it just brings out different colors in the quilt. I think it's really interesting how different they look, even though they're both so similar. So there's those. And then these turn to the middle. Our second diagram is just like the first one, but with our darks pointing in. So you'll make 9 of these blocks as well. And just line them up. That is that block, that layout. I love it. I think it's so cool. This is my second favorite. My first favorite is probably the one I'm going to show you next. We made the quilt out of it, and I just think it's stunning. I love it. Okay, so I'm going to show this layout in a 1/4 of the quilt. So you can make 4 of these designs and then put them together. It's kind of like a little quilting hack, right? It's like making these big blocks and then sewing them together makes it easier. When you have a quilt like this that you can break down into quadrants, you make all 4 the same, and it feels like it's a lot easier to handle because you've got these 4 small quilts rather than really long rows or really, you know, it feels efficient. That's all. I don't know if it is or not, and I don't think we need to study it. Let's just enjoy this thing. Okay, so the next one, the final one, that's a little bit more complicated. It starts with these all the same, and then we turn this one in. And that is going to help us to make our pattern that creates that exploding block kind of look. So we'll leave this one here, although it's going to go up. And I'm going to pull this guy down because he goes here. And he goes here. And then this one, the little peach blocks match up. Okay, so I think I have this one. Does it go like that? That is right. Okay, so this is the 4th of the block that we made for the cover, and I just think it's so cool. Ta-da! It's so great. It's such a fun quilt. It turns out 86 square. We have a 3-inch inner border, which I think makes the whole pattern look like it's floating, and I love that. We've got a 5-inch outer border. I'll show you our beautiful backing. And we've used diagonal plaid hexie for the machine quilting pattern. It's one of our fun, newer, more modern patterns, and I just love it. I think this would look great on a bed. You could take it picnicking, you know, use whatever fabrics and colors. Well, I can't wait to see what you guys have made. I'm excited to see the different color choices. You can share your coloring pages or finished quilts or blocks that you're working on. If you'd like to share with us, just use hashtag MSQC Show and Tell on Instagram, and I'll be able to look in and see what you've got. And I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial on the Tranquil Triangles What If series by the Missouri Star Quilt Company and me. Hi everybody, I hope you enjoyed today's video. We're trying super hard to get to 1 million subscribers, so if you enjoyed it and you want to see more, just hit subscribe and share with your friends and encourage them to do the same, and I will see you next Friday with a brand new tutorial.